Nobody is telling you the full truth about what happened Friday. Not the Americans, not the Iranians, not the Israelis. And by the end of this, you will understand exactly why and what it means for the next 72 hours. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stood in front of international press in Rome on Friday and said 6 words that revealed everything about where this negotiation actually stands. He said, "We should know something today." Not, "We have confirmation." Not, "The deal is close." Hope. That single word, hope, is the linguistic signature of a diplomat who does not know the outcome and is managing your expectations in real time on live television. If you find that alarming, stay with this, because what came next was worse. Iran responded, and the response was not what Rubio hoped. Iran's foreign ministry said Tehran was still reviewing the U.S. proposal, but had strongly rejected some of its terms. Strongly rejected. This is the same proposal that Axios, CNN, Reuters, and the Times of Israel all independently confirmed was the closest the two sides had been to agreement in the entire 70 days of this war. The proposal that included a moratorium on uranium enrichment, sanctions relief, frozen asset releases, and a mutual Hormuz opening within 30 days. The proposal that 2 senior U.S. officials described as the framework they expected Iran to accept within 48 hours. Iran strongly rejected some of its terms and said it was still reviewing the rest. If you want to know what that means operationally, drop the word operational in the comments right now. This matters more than most people realize. Then came the revelation nobody saw coming. An Israeli official told Army radio on Wednesday that Jerusalem had not been informed that Trump was nearing an agreement with Iran. "We were preparing for an escalation," the official said. Let that land. While Trump was announcing a 1-page memorandum of understanding. While Rubio was saying we should know something today. While Axios was reporting the closest the parties had been since the war began. Israel, the country that launched Operation Epic Fury alongside the United States on February 28th, was preparing for war. Netanyahu's office moved quickly to deny it, insisting the premier was in constant contact with Trump. But the denial came with a qualifier that tells you everything. Netanyahu has instructed the IDF to prepare for all scenarios, including a return to fighting if necessary. That is not the language of a country that believes a deal is imminent. Here's where the numbers expose the gap that everyone is trying to paper over. The U.S. wants a minimum 12-year moratorium on uranium enrichment, with sources putting 15 as the likely landing spot. Iran proposed 5 years. The gap that broke the Islamabad talks in April was 20 American years versus 3 to 5 Iranian years. The gap that collapsed the first stage proposal was identical. After 70 days of war, 13 American deaths, 3,400 Iranian deaths, and $4.46 gasoline at American pumps, the U.S. position has moved from 20 years to somewhere between 12 and 15. Iran's position has moved from 3 to 5. The mathematical middle of 5 and 15 is 10. Nobody has confirmed Tehran will accept 10. 2 American sources told Axios that Iran had agreed to remove its highly enriched uranium from the country, potentially moving it to the United States. This would represent the single most significant concession in the entire negotiation. Iran's parliament called that characterization an American wish list. Iran's foreign ministry said no nuclear negotiations at this stage. The 2 American sources and the Iranian foreign ministry cannot both be correct simultaneously. That contradiction is not a reporting error. That contradiction is the negotiation. Trump laid out the stakes himself on Truth Social Wednesday in a single post that contained both a diplomatic vision and a military threat in the same paragraph. He wrote that if Iran accepts, the war ends and the Strait of Hormuz opens. Then 3 sentences later, if they don't agree, the bombing starts, and it will be sadly at a much higher level and intensity than it was before. The President of the United States used the phrase, "perhaps a big assumption," in the same post where he described the agreement he was trying to reach. Hope from Rubio, big assumption from Trump, wish list from Tehran, escalation preparation from Jerusalem. These are the 4 simultaneous signals on day 69 of a war that 3 different officials have described as simultaneously over, not over, and terminated. While diplomats issued statements, CENTCOM confirmed it had shot down Iranian missiles, drones, and small boats that attacked U.S. warships and struck Iranian military facilities in retaliation. These are not disputed claims. These are confirmed, documented military exchanges between American and Iranian forces during the same ceasefire that Rubio said was over, that Hagel said was not over, and that Iran's foreign ministry called an extension of military operations. A ceasefire with active military exchanges. A deal that is simultaneously the closest ever and an American wish list. An Israeli ally simultaneously denying surprise and preparing for war. Underneath all of it are 90 million people who have had no internet for 70 days. Iranian citizens whose incomes have reached zero. A citizen from Shiraz, whose words circulated on social media before the blackout deepened, wrote this: "Every single day of delay is a matter of life and death." That person is not in the negotiating room. They are not represented in the parliamentary statements. They have no access to the Axios report or Trump's Truth Social post or Rubio's press conference in Rome. They have 50.6% inflation, declining savings, and a supreme leader who declared victory while their income reached zero. A senior Iranian official confirmed Saturday that Tehran's counterproposal maintains a sequential approach: end the war first, open Hormuz, and address nuclear issues in the final stage. The U.S. drafted memorandum of understanding declares the war over and starts a 30-day negotiation clock on nuclear, Hormuz, and sanctions simultaneously. Iran wants to separate them. The MOU links them. That gap between sequential and simultaneous is the operational distance between a signed agreement and resumed strikes. And that distance is where the next 72 hours will be decided. The Strait of Hormuz currently runs at less than 10% of its pre-war daily oil volume. It carried 20% of the world's oil before February 28th. The one-page document that could reopen it is sitting in the hands of 2 governments that cannot agree on whether 12 years is close enough to 20 or too far from 5. Pakistani mediators are carrying the responses. The clock is not paused. If Iran's final response arrives before Trump boards a flight to Beijing, it will be either the document that ends 70 days of war or the document that confirms the bombing resumes at a higher intensity than before. We track every verified number on this daily. Drop your answer below. Which signal do you trust more right now? The 2 American officials who told Axios that Iran agreed to uranium removal, or the Iranian parliament that called the entire report an American wish list? Every comment gets read. The sharpest analysis gets featured. If the MOU is signed and the 30-day clock starts, what is the specific Iranian action in the first 30 days that triggers an American restoration of the blockade? Is that trigger defined clearly enough in a one-page document to prevent a dispute about whether it was crossed? And if the deal is signed next week, the sanctions lift gradually, the assets release, the Hormuz reopens, what does the citizen from Shiraz, whose income has reached zero, actually receive? And on what timeline does it reach them? Those 3 questions are what the next chapter of this story turns on. We update this analysis every day. Hit subscribe so you don't read about the outcome somewhere else after it's already happened.